situation, what would you do? What do you mean? Like, what are your skills? What's your game plan? Oh, okay, yeah, I'd find a man. Find a man? Yeah, I mean, am I strong? Sure. Am I capable? Sure. Am I stronger or more capable than a well-trained man? No. Okay, well, that's internal misogyny, but we're not even going to talk about that. Why do you think this man is just going to protect you? Oh, yeah, that's where my skills come in. Oh. What should I have said, like archery or something?
All right, this is not actually the morning after. This is the Fact Check This podcast. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Elizabeth Duffy. So I had actually we do different little videos and stuff for our intros for the morning after. And a friend had sent your TikTok to me, and I was like, oh, that's perfect, because one of our running gags for that show is we are misogynistic, we are racist, we're all a bunch of neo-Nazis. So we just lean into all of the stereotypes that get thrown at people who tend to lean our direction with stuff. And so seeing that, I was like, oh, that's perfect. That is a perfect clip for an intro. So
yeah, you had to go with one of the really controversial ones there.
Well, that's kind of the nature of our morning show. Not that I'm not controversial with this show, but maybe a little bit less explicitly so.
Yeah, that was my big internal misogyny video where I got the feminazis were very angry at me for that one.
I would imagine so. I bet you get a lot of backlash on that on pretty much anything you do. So, and that's part of what we're going to talk about. But to start us off, why don't you kind of introduce yourself, and then we'll just sort of take it from there.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Elizabeth Duffy, and I do content creation kind of based around libertarianism, personal sovereignty, freedom, and with like a comedic satirical twist to it. So basically everybody on all sides hates me all the time. So that's what I do.
That is the perfect place to be, I would think.
Yeah, right in the middle.
Yeah, if you've got everybody pissed off, then you're probably pissing off the right people. So let's talk a little bit about being kind of controversial on stuff, because you definitely do have a lot of stuff, especially on your TikTok, that would be viewed as controversial from either the right or the left. And for somebody like me who agrees with all of that, it's really cool. But what's some of the typical backlash you get on, for instance, the internal misogyny clip or stuff along those lines? Like, so what's some of the biggest backlash you get from people?
So the left basically attacks me usually for obviously white supremacy, being white, and then internal misogyny because I don't follow the kind of feminist narrative. And what else? The left hates me on basically everything, actually. I don't think the left, you have to like toe the line exactly on the left, or else you're like a far right supremacist or whatever. So the left hates basically all my views. The right doesn't really attack me on a whole lot, minus the fact that I have like an OnlyFans, and they, like the social conservatives get really angry. It was actually funny back in the day when TikTok first started. I had one kind of just for fun, and I would make videos, and I had like an American flag behind me a lot of times, and people would just assume I was like a conservative, like a Christian conservative, like hardcore type, and they'd follow me, and then like a video would come up where I did something that like wasn't conservative, and the amount of rage that they would be like, I thought you were a Christian. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know where you got that. Sorry. They get really offended when you have too much cleavage. It's weird. So that's the only thing the right actually gets on me. And it's not everybody on the right. Like the right is way more chill at this point. It's funny, back in the day, like 10 years ago, I probably disagreed with the right more than the left, because the left used to be like super chill, and their only big thing was like gay marriage and stuff. But other than that, they were very like live and let live. Not the politicians, like just the average like lefty that you would come across, basically the average Democrat. And the Republicans were more like, no, we don't want this stuff. Like, you have to follow this line. You have to be socially conservative, and so I disagreed a lot more on their stuff, but they've really come around. Like, there's a lot of people on the right now who are like anti-police brutality, they're anti-big federal government, like they're pretty libertarian, actually, the majority of average righties that you come across now. So they're not as hardcore as they used to be.
That is an interesting shift that you've seen. So on that topic, because while we've seen a lot of people on the right who have become a little more normal, I guess you would say, a little less
Yeah.
Ideologically aggressive with some of those super puritanical viewpoints, which I see the value in some of that, like tradition and family values and some of that stuff. Like, they have a very important role in society. But at the same time, like, there are some things that were, even for me as being a like raised very conservative Christian type, like even some of that stuff pushed way too far and rubbed me the wrong way for as traditional as my upbringing was.
Yeah, I
So
don't have a problem with any of it. Like, I grew up very like Christian conservative as well, but I only have an issue when the state gets involved with it. When you want it involved in politics, when you want the government enforcing kind of your viewpoint, then I have an issue with it. I don't have an issue with it if it's just your viewpoint. I mean, live and let live, basically, on all things.
right.
So,
And so as we've moved where maybe some of that is loosened, on the other side of it, the left has gotten like increasingly more psychotic. Like at one time, you could look at the left and say, okay, they're kind of kooky and out there with some of this stuff, but it's whatever. Like, that's a fringe group. And now, if you don't agree with that fringe group wholeheartedly on every single topic, no matter what, you are a Nazi, you are a white supremacist, you are their enemy, and you should be canceled, and you have to be destroyed at every level. What has kind of been your take and your view on this, the shift between the two sides that we've seen really over the last, I'd say definitely over the last 20 years, but it's really, really ramped up over the last 10.
yeah, so basically, as like a libertarian, you're kind of chilling right here, and the left used to be here, and the right used to be here. The right has actually come in a bit, and then the left has just gone way fucking far away, like super far away. So now it looks like the libertarians are like standing on the right to them, and they're like, you're far right, and it's like, no, you left. We were in the middle. You left, and now you're like so far left that everybody looks far right to you. It's insane. The progressives, or whatever they want to call themselves, have definitely taken over. Like, you're right, it used to be kind of this small niche group that nobody really paid attention to, but it's it's gotten kind of freaky how much power that they've gotten a hold of. And you're right, it has been kind of a long time coming type of thing. It was like a slow roll. They like got control of the universities, they got control of the public schools, they got control of like indoctrinating a whole generation to believe this junk. And then after they had a whole generation that believed the junk, then they rolled it out in the political sphere. It's crazy. It's really impressive, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not sure how old you are. Like, I'm pushing 40, so I was in a generation that, as the public school takeover was kind of happening, like I got to see it starting to happen, but it didn't really affect my group of friends over the like 2-3 years. I guess from like 2000 to 2003, our graduating classes, we really didn't see it. But like, my brother graduated in 2004, and it really seemed to hit with his class. Like, the way that the government programs were starting to really hit the schools, and the way that they were being taught stuff, it really shifted. And it, like, you can see a huge difference between him and his class and the ones that came after versus us and the ones who had come before. So it's like all of this stuff really started to finally take hold, and you really do see a huge shift in the culture from that point. That's why we have all those things that talk about the exennials or whatever. Like, there is that kind of generational gap between Gen X and millennials, that there is a little group that don't really identify either way, because there was that transitional phase where it hadn't quite taken hold yet, but it had started. And so we got to kind of witness that slow roll as it as it played itself out?
Yeah, I graduated in 2011, so I can't even imagine like how bad it is now. I can't. And it's funny because I grew up in this like teeny tiny town in Western New York, and so it was like 700 kids in my whole school, K through 12, right? And like people would drive like tractors to school and shit. Like it was very rural. It was an Amish town. Yeah, and but even with all of that, we had insanely liberal teachers because they would come in from like, the city or whatever to come teach at the school. And they were all super liberal. I remember it was such a big deal when Obama got elected that everybody in middle school and high school went down to our auditorium and like watched him like be sworn in. And it was like this huge thing. And like teachers were crying and it was like a really big fucking deal. And so I was even back before like teachers really talked politics a whole lot, you know what I mean? Now it seems like everybody's saying that like they know everything about their teachers. They know like their political stances, they know their sexual orientation, they know like all this shit. And I mean, I guess we kind of knew our teacher's sexual orientation because like we had like a couple lesbian teachers and stuff, and you obviously knew, but they weren't like, we're lesbians. Like nobody had to say it. We're just like, we know you're lesbians together. But you know what I mean? And so it's even from then it's gotten so much crazier. I don't know how much further it can even literally go. I think the pendulum's got to swing back at this point because I don't think there's really a whole lot more room.
So that kind of gets into with talking about the cultural stuff and some of the pushback that you get on some of the things that you post. Are you starting to see any of that starting to swing back a little bit? Are you starting to see like getting more support for some of what you're saying? Because I'm sure anytime you post something, the people who agree with you tend to not say a whole lot. And the people who hate everything that you do are going to be the loudest and the most prominent. So are you starting to see anything where maybe it is starting to shift back in that other direction? Are you starting to see more support, or maybe see less of the animosity? I don't imagine that actually happens. I think the ones who
not
show
less
the
animosity.
Yeah, I don't think they have an off switch or a dial back.
No, I have plenty of hate followers who just follow me to hate on me. But so as far as the support thing goes, I have gotten a lot more since this recent election, a lot more people coming out and saying I used to be on the left. But like, the pandemic happened or Biden happened or whatever, and I came out of it. I can't support it anymore. So there's a lot more of that. And there also are a lot more people on the right going, "Oh, I didn't know I was libertarian." Like when you kind of describe some of the things, they're like, "Oh, yeah, I thought I was Republican. I didn't know I was libertarian." It's like, yeah, a lot of you guys actually have pretty like liberty-minded values, but you're like hardcore into the Republican thing because you don't even know there's another option. Or a lot of people think that voting libertarian is just throwing your vote away to the left, basically, because they think they only pull from the right. But so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like Republicans being like, "Oh, I didn't even know. Like I guess I'm not like full-blown Republican." But I think the whole Republican Party in general, when it comes to like, the actual people involved, not the politicians, has moved quite a bit more towards the center. So I think that's good either way.
Okay, so this may be a little more inside baseball type question. What do you think is a good libertarian strategy? Do you think it's to run a whole bunch of candidates on like local levels? Do you think it's to try to go for like big national campaigns? Is it to do sort of a Ron Paulish type thing and use the Republican Party as a vehicle to drive for liberty and promote liberty in that way? What do you think of like strategy wise? How's the best way to go about spreading a message of liberty and getting people to kind of see what the ideas are and understand where these things are coming from?
So I think, well, one, I think the Libertarian Party missed out. I have so many problems with Libertarian Party, by the way, but I do have high hopes for the Mises Caucus takeover. So fingers crossed. But I think we missed our largest opportunity probably that would ever fucking be, sorry, I don't know if I can swear on here, could ever be handed to us with the pandemic, and not coming out against that like hardcore. Like, the Libertarian Party should have been all over social media going, no, we're the party of no lockdowns. We're the party of liberty. We're the party of freedom. We're the party of supporting small business. We're the party of no lockdowns, no big government. We're the party of you can choose like medical freedom. And they didn't. But that's the kind of stuff that you need to do. You need to literally inject yourself into the conversation. And the Libertarian Party has such an issue with that. The Libertarian Party is so like small and meek, and they're like, well, we just want to blah, 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 you know, or they say dumb shit, like just really dumb stuff. Nothing like actual libertarians care about. So I'm really hoping that the Mises Caucus takeover changes this all up, because I know like there was a huge sweep. So I'm really hoping for that. But as far as what they need to do, that's what they need to do. They need to come out and be like, no, we're the party of liberty. We're the party of freedom. We're the party of you can, you know, make your own decisions and you're an adult, and come out on social media. That it's really not that hard. So I don't think it even has to be like so complicated as like, oh, we have like run like a hidden type Republican and but have them have like liberty minded ideals and kind of like sneak it in. No, just like come out full force, hit people in the face with it. Like, we're the party of freedom, and both of the other parties shut you down and locked you in your house and wanted to force like a medical choice on you, and we're the exact opposite of that.
Well, and then it rolled into 2021, and the Libertarian Party, the National Libertarian Party, basically continued to double down on being soft and pathetic on all of those topics when
it's impolite. It's impolite to leave your house
when it was still going on. Like, yeah, that was kind of a thing for me. Was I left the Republican Party a long time ago. I guess it was in 2008, and I just kind of was disaffiliated for a long time, and I knew of the Libertarian Party. I just didn't have a whole lot of, and I identified personally as libertarian leaning, but I didn't have a whole lot of use for the Libertarian Party, because everything I'd ever seen of it just seemed really soft and useless. Mm-hmm. So coming into 2020, like with the lockdowns and COVID and everything that was happening, it was like, okay, this is the time that, like, as a party, you should be shining. Like, this is your moment to, you know, strike while the iron's hot. And so I started putting money towards stuff. I started supporting stuff. I started attending stuff and getting involved. And then it just never happened.
It didn't pan out there.
Yeah. So it was like, there's your opportunity. And then come 2021, it's like, okay, like I get it. You may have had a particular strategy going into 2020 and you didn't want to abandon that strategy, even though in the face of, you know, this monumental thing, that's what you have to do, is abandon whatever your old strategy was and hit the thing that's the most pressing in society. And they didn't do it. It's like, well, you got 2021, you've got the vaccine mandates that are being rolled out. Like, now's your time to stand up and say, okay, this is the thing. Do not let the government dictate this to you. And we believe that you should have body autonomy. And then they just doubled down on being soft and aggressive. And so I kind of, I'm excited for the Mises takeover as well. But until I start to see fruit from it, like I just have very little use for it. And I will use libertarian ideas and ideals for things that I do locally. But until something really changes with that, I have trouble aligning with them for the time being. We'll see what the next year or two brings.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm kind of the exact opposite. Like, I've always been libertarian leaning and avoided, like, it's kind of like the catch-22 with being a libertarian, right? It's like you never want to like actually be a part of a group or anything political or anything like that. You're just like, no, thanks. So I've definitely avoided any organized politics for a long time. But then after COVID happened and that whole missed opportunity and everything, I started to actually look into like the party and get more involved in the actual politics of it. So I'm kind of the opposite. I'm hopeful. I don't even know if I'm a registered libertarian. That's the funny thing. I tried, and then like I don't know if it went through. One thing I'm hoping for, I don't understand how there's so many autistic libertarians out here, and the electronic side should be working a lot better. Our tech should be like on point. You know what I mean? But it's not. When I went to register for Reno, it like didn't go through. I had to call, like a lady had to help me, and she like I thought she was going to do some like technical thing on her end. She didn't. She just redid the form on her end and like asked me all the info and like filled it out and then messed it up. It was just like a shit show. And I was like, we should have the best tech, like how we have all of the autistic people. We should be top notch.
You would think that with all of the people who just like flood social media with libertarian stuff nonstop, that we would have the best social media out there. Because
nobody wants to get involved, though.
Both the Democrats and the Republicans, like their social media presence is very minimal and really, really bland, if not just blatantly shitty.
Well, they utilize like celebrities and blue check mark people and stuff like that to push out their message. Really, I mean, literally, Biden had influencers that he was telling policy to, and he was like, "Go spread this on TikTok."
Yeah.
So that's how they do it. So it doesn't even matter what their actual social media platforms look like. They're utilizing influencers and other people. So the Libertarian Party is incredibly behind, like on social media.
And you would think with the names and faces and like recognizable people that the party has that identify as libertarians, they should be a lot better at that than they are, and they're just not. And with all the tech entrepreneurs and people who are into cryptos and all of that stuff that are libertarian, you would think we would be better tech wise with stuff, and it's just not. And
yeah, it's crazy, right?
It's a shame.
Is Vince Vaughn still libertarian? Why do we not have Vince Vaughn?
Right? Why don't they reach out to any of the people who have self-identified, like publicly said, yeah, I think I'm more libertarian than anything, or like you said, Vince Vaughn. There are plenty of other like celebrities, big name celebrities that have.
I think it's because the Libertarian Party doesn't want to win. Like they're just happy to exist. You know what I mean? And they're scared to not exist. So they're like, if we don't like rattle any cages, if we just stay small, they'll let us keep existing. I really think that's been the big fear, is like they're scared to die, so they don't want to push any buttons or whatever. But it's the only way you get into the conversation is by pushing buttons.
So let's talk about that, because I do think that is an interesting part of the Libertarian Party, especially the National Party, is there are plenty of people in the more right-wing segments of libertarianism who think that the LP National it's an op. It's a controlled op that it serves a certain purpose to swing elections in different areas one way or the other, however, say the cathedral wants it to swing, by utilizing, say, a good right-leaning Republican candidate to knock off, or a good right-leaning Libertarian candidate to knock off a Republican, or using a more left-leaning Libertarian candidate to knock off a Democrat. And because we've seen that happen both ways across the country. I think most prominently probably would have been in Georgia, where Shane Hazel ran a good campaign, but ultimately two really shitty Democrat senators ended up winning over two very soft and mediocre Republican candidates. So that shifted the Senate to the left, or to the middle, I guess you would say. And with the Democrats taking the presidency, that gives them the tiebreaker in the Senate. So what do you think about that, as far as like the possibility of the Libertarian Party on a national level being kind of a controlled op?
I don't know if it was intentional, but I definitely think so. What I think the Libertarian Party has been is just like lining the pockets of certain people and basically just kind of just fake. You know what I mean? It's like these people that were in high positions in the Libertarian Party, I think they didn't actually care whether or not the Libertarian Party went anywhere. They just liked their like high status job or whatever, and that's all they cared about. Like, I don't think anybody in the upper levels of the Libertarian Party really wanted libertarianism to grow or to flourish or to actually win anything. I think they just cared about the job, and they just utilized the Libertarian Party to like meet their own goals and stuff like that. That's what I think it has been. As far as like, do I think they purposefully put people in there? Maybe. I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I'm always down for a good conspiracy. So maybe, but I definitely think that the people in there weren't in there for like actually growing the Libertarian Party. And you could tell by all the things that they did. They didn't even attempt to do anything that would grow the Libertarian Party.
So to that point, if the Libertarian Party under the Mises Caucus starts to see some success, starts to actually change that messaging, starts to maybe even win some meaningful races. I mean, I know the Libertarians in Pennsylvania like won a whole bunch of seats on different county councils and school boards and stuff like that. And a lot of them were uncontested, which is cool. I mean, that's the way you build your numbers, and that's the way you get wins. Is you find the easy races and you pick those off. But let's say that the Mises Caucus does start to have success and does start to get legitimate wins, does start to like really pose a threat and create a challenge to the duopoly.
Mm-hmm.
What happens then? Because then you are squarely in their crosshairs, and they like fighting with each other. They don't necessarily like competition to their little game that they play. So what happens if the party does actually start to be good and have some influence?
Like, do I think the attacks would start from Republicans and Democrats?
Oh, I mean, we've already seen that they've effectively labeled us domestic terrorists.
Yeah. So right. I mean, I think it's good. I think that's kind of what you have to do. I don't know. You know what I mean? I think that's what you have to do. I think obviously there's going to be there's going to be attacks from both sides just because they want it to say just them. And I think that's like what I was saying, like one of the big issues with the Libertarian Party has been that they're aware of that. And they're like, okay, well, if we just don't fuck with them too much, then they'll just let us keep existing over here in the corner. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to get into that actual battle with them because they know it's going to be a team up and get rid of the Libertarian Party type issue. But I think that's a huge problem with American politics is this whole idea that no, it's like Democrat and Republican and that's it. Like the whole idea of, oh, well, libertarians siphon votes. You're not siphoning votes from anybody. It's a different option. Like that comes down, the whole siphoning votes thing correlates to this idea of, oh, it's only supposed to be Democrat and Republican. So if you put in a third option, it's going to pull from one of the other sides. And it's like, no, it's just a different option. So you're adding in an additional option. It's not siphoning votes from either side. It's a separate vote. You know what I mean?
You're giving people the choice that they actually wanted to make.
Yeah. And so it doesn't matter if there's 50 choices. Nobody's siphoning votes from other places. You just have 50 choices, you know? And so I think there's this huge issue with, oh, it has to be Democrat or Republican. And just how people view that in general is like, there's only two ways of thinking. That's insane. There's definitely more than two ways of thinking.
So this is a interesting point, and that's the scam. There are no parties. It's only the flip sides of the uniparty. Like they are the two wings of the same bird, two sides of the same coin. Like they are.
So they don't want to be threatened.
Who's in control? Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to be threatened with a third option that's not a part of the game. That's not a part of the scam. And I think that we have to. And the thing is like, you're not going to do anything just sitting on the sidelines. You're not going to do anything hiding in the corner. So if you actually want liberty, you're going to have to come out against them, and you're just going to have to, it just has to be a big, like, social media push. Like, you have to get people behind you and people supporting you, and that's what you have to do. But you're going to have to fight them eventually.
And you have to be willing to take those spears and arrows and keep pushing forward, because they're going to lob everything they've got at you as soon as you start to present yourself as a legitimate threat. And you've got to be ready to wade through those battles and to get hit like that and to keep pushing forward, because it's not going to end once you present yourself as a legitimate threat.
Right. Well, and if you aren't willing to do that, do you even really believe what you're saying?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to legitimately believe what you're saying to be able to go and like take those arrows and stuff. But at the end of the day, like, it's worth it if you truly believe in personal sovereignty and liberty. So if your idea of personal sovereignty stops at someone attacking you, it wasn't a very strong belief there, I don't think.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So we've been a little more serious on the political side of stuff. Let's lighten it up a little bit. You did mention it, so I wanted to ask very briefly. Don't want to spend too much time on the topic necessarily. You mentioned the OnlyFans thing. Do you consider that sex work?
Okay, so I actually don't consider it sex work. I think that's kind of like too big of an umbrella, because I think there definitely is a difference between posting nude photos and actually having sex with people. So I think there should be like a separate category, especially because like you can post nude photos in a very artistic way. There's plenty of chicks that I follow on OnlyFans that don't do full nude, you know what I mean? So there's tons of different options, and throwing it all under sex work, I think, is pretty broad. But the people who are vehemently anti anything with women showing their bodies, or anybody showing their bodies, I guess, they kind of just have an overall umbrella of like the whole slut shame thing. So they're like, no, you're all sex workers. But I don't view it as sex work, because I think there's a big difference between having sex and posting a nude photo. But that's just me. Like, I don't think Playboy models are sex workers.
Right. Like, so that's one of those distinct, or making the distinguishment between the two that you'll see on, well, not you, because you're not on Twitter, but like, if
I know, I need to get on there.
Then it's kind of a shit show. So you should put some consideration into that before just jumping in. But yeah, I mean, it is also a fun place, and there's a lot of good conversations that also happen on Twitter, on top of it just being a complete cesspool of human waste. But like, that's a kind of a topic that comes up, is like everything gets lumped in as sex work, and even like OnlyFans models who do that sort of stuff, some do call it sex work. It's like, yeah, but is it really? Like, you're I don't know. It feels like there should be some distinctions and categorizations of that separate what is actually sex work versus what is, artistic or creative or just nudity, stuff like that. So yeah, I wanted to get your take on that, because that is something that gets
I wouldn't.
about.
When it comes down to actual like government policy, though, like, it should all be allowed, in my opinion. Obviously, I think decriminalize anything to do with what you would call sex work or whatever. So that's just my opinion, because I don't think so. The funny thing about I've never understood why like prostitution would be illegal, because you basically have sex with people for all different types of reasons. You know what I mean? And tons of chicks will just like have sex for a free meal. So it's like, it's the same thing, really. But as soon as you say like specific words and money is exchanged in a specific way, there's plenty of people who, like, in their relationship, the dude or the chick or whatever pays for everything all the time. And there's definitely a financial exchange in the relationship. So it's like this really weird thing where it's like, no, as soon as you're doing that, I genuinely only think it's because like, you can't really tax it.
There is no good way for the government to monitor, regulate, and tax it. Therefore, it has to be illegal, because unless they can put their hands in it and get their cut, then.
But it's so easy to make things illegal, because all the government has to do is like, look how bad this is, and people are like, well, I would never do it, and it's like, it's true, I would never do it. Just like drugs, I would never do it. But do I think that people should be thrown in jail for doing it? No. And it's like, you can believe that like things are maybe not great, or like that you would never do something, and also not have it criminalized. Like, there needs to be a huge distinction there. So that's one of those things, is like, would I do real quote unquote sex work? Never. But do I think anybody should be thrown in jail for that? No. As long as it's consensual adults, which, by the way, I think the Libertarian Party also needs to come out and have like big, strong message against the whole fucking age of consent thing. I hate that. I get that argument so much. Is like, I'll be talking about like taxes or something, and people will try to shut me down by going, okay, now talk about the libertarians' thoughts on age of consent. And I'm like, actually, I think it should be raised to 20 for everything across the board, personally. But only because like I feel like it's the only logical number. Nobody else like agrees with me on this, but I think 20 makes sense because you're no longer a teenager. You know what I mean? Like 18, 19. So you have like your child years, your teen years, and then your adult years. Adult would start at where? 20, right? Because you're not 18, 19. Adult starts at 20. So I think everything across the board, like guns, booze, all of it, 20 years old.
But I don't necessarily disagree with that. So I wanted to ask Magoo's question here, and then I do want to dig more into the raising the age of everything. So Magoo asks, is there a difference in interacting with OnlyFans replies and libertarian dudes on TikTok? Because libertarian dudes tend to get the incel vibe that they a lot of libertarian dudes, especially if you do join Twitter, you will see it very quickly. They simp hard, and they don't seem to have a huge social life as far as the female of the species is concerned. So they tend to be pretty cringy as far as some of us like less incel type are concerned. And when we see their interactions with some of the ladies, the libertarian ladies of Twitter, it's just like, oh God, could you be a little bit less that? So do you get some of that?
I think the incel thing is changing, to be fair. Like, I think as the party grows and stuff, the incel thing is changing. So I think we're stepping away from that, we're growing. But as far as like the interacting, I'm really lucky in the fact that like the people who tend to agree with me or enjoy my content on any platform are just like super chill and cool and nice. And it is like on OnlyFans, it's obviously only positive. So that's kind of cool. But the majority of dudes want to talk politics when they message me on there. They want to like talk about like the latest video I made or whatever, or they want to talk cars, or they just want to talk like what's going on in their life. It's like pretty chill. It's kind of similar to being a bartender. Like I used to be a bartender. It's the same thing. But on like TikTok and stuff like that, you have a little bit more of like the nice comments are the nice comments, but then the people that want to shut you down are basically the only difference. Is like you have people who are definitely way more like rude, but that's TikTok for you.
I could see that. I wouldn't imagine you would get a whole lot of people on OnlyFans who are going to pay to badmouth you. I don't know. And if people are willing to, like, if I were doing that,
if you want.
Yeah, I mean, if I were doing that, if people want to pay me money so they can talk shit about me, I'll take your money.
Degrade me all day.
I'll even talk shit back if that's what you want. Like we can do that. I do that for free on Twitter every day. I can definitely have an OnlyFans where I just talk shit to people.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think people are really chill and cool, and there's just a lot of like liberty-minded people right now with all of the shit that's gone down over the past few years, I guess. And so people just want to talk freedom, want to talk liberty. So that's why I think the Libertarian Party in general has like a big opportunity. Well, they missed a really big one, but there still is an opportunity here. So I think we should really grab it.
Very cool. And yeah, you're definitely right on that. So let's talk about that raising the age of stuff, because there are right now the House and Senate are kicking around this new gun control legislation that would raise the age of purchasing a firearm to 21, amongst other things. And for what you were talking about, like raising the age to 20 on everything, what do you think about the firearm age? And also, like, so for my personal opinion on that, cool. Raise the age to buy a firearm to 21. Also raise the age of enlisting in the military to 21. Mm. Raise the voting age to 21. Like, make it across the board. Don't just say we're going to raise the age to buy a weapon. there was I don't know if you saw it. There was a clip of Thomas Massey had an exchange with another senator, and I can't remember, or a congressman, I can't remember what his name was, when he said we should raise the age to 21. Massey said, well, then shouldn't we also raise the age of military enlistment to 21? And the guy said, well, no, we shouldn't. And he said, but didn't you just say that the brain isn't fully developed and you're not matured, a mature adult until 21, so you shouldn't be allowed to buy a weapon? But you want those people whose brains aren't developed and aren't mature in the military at 18?
He's like, yeah, obviously that's how we get them.
Yeah, that's effectively what he said. Like he was saying the quiet part out loud there.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on all of that? Because you did say you wanted it raised to 20, or you thought it should be raised to 20 anyway, which I don't disagree with actually. So
yeah, well, so I think it just needs to be one age across the board for literally everything. Either you're an adult or you're not an adult. Like logically, the different ages for different things doesn't make any sense to me. I know people are like, oh, your brain doesn't fully develop until 25. I see a lot of that on TikTok, or it's around 25. And so they say, okay, so we should raise the gun age to around 25 or whatever. And it's like, we need to just sit down and define what an adult is, because an adult should be able to do everything across the board. There shouldn't be different freedoms for adults based on age. You're not adult level 1, adult level 2. You know what I mean? You're just an adult. So whatever that adult age we decide is, and for some reason we say 18 now. I honestly don't know why. Like for me, I always want to have a logical reason behind everything and why I support something. So that's why 20 makes sense to me, because I'm like, well, you're not a teenager anymore. And what's the step after teen? Adult. So it seems like 20 would be the adult age. I don't know. It just makes sense. But if we want to make it 18, we can make it 18, whatever. But there needs to be one age where it's just like you can do everything because you're an adult who has adult rights to freedom, to personal protection. That's another thing with the gun thing. It's like you're saying now that a kid has to move out of their parents' house at one age, but they're not old enough to protect themselves with a firearm until they're 21. That's crazy to me. Like, so you have multiple years of you're an adult and you have to pay for all your shit and you have to do everything and have all this responsibility, but you can't protect yourself because you're not mature enough to do that, but you're mature enough to do everything else.
Right.
And also maturity is super subjective. So it can't be based on maturity, because then it's going to be, if you want to base on maturity, you basically have to have a test, right? And then who's creating that test? So then you run into all kinds of problems there. So it has to be an age. It has to be and there's going to be plenty of people who are super immature at that age and super mature at that age. That's just how it's going to be. And we just have to deal with it. Like 18-year-olds are all across the spectrum of maturity. So are 20-year-olds, so are 25-year-olds. You know, so we just have to pick an age, and you get everything. You're an adult. You have full freedom at that age. That's what I think.
Yeah. And I mean, that is not unreasonable. So something that's a popular topic amongst many libertarians is states' rights and the 10th Amendment. So would having a flat age across the board, would that violate a states' rights 10th Amendment type of a thing, where it would, at that point, it would have to be a federal mandate, and then you kind of take away so like for right now, Indiana has a different age of consent than say Kentucky, than say Tennessee. Yeah,
I think that's crazy, honestly. So I'm all about states' rights. I'm super into states' rights, but if we're going, we are libertarians. We're not anarchists, right? I mean, well, I always say like anarchy is the ideal, but libertarianism is my compromise. And so with libertarianism, we are agreeing that there is a federal government and it has a couple of purposes. And that, like, I think the whole point is like the federal government is supposed to protect your freedom, right? And you have to, like, at what age do you get all those full freedoms? I mean, think
if protecting children isn't one of those few things that the federal government should do, then
what's the point of the government? Then we shouldn't even have one, I think. Yeah. So it's like you have to define what is a child, what is an adult. Yeah. And I think that's pretty, like,
it doesn't seem that crazy to me. It seems pretty simple. It should be one across the board. It's like you're an adult at this age, you get full freedoms at this age, no matter where you are in the United States of America.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. It would clean things up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the being an accountant, especially being an accountant where, you know, the tax burden is pretty wild on most of the American citizens, and so you get to kind of see things from the tax side of it. And being in accounting, what are some of the things that are challenging and also maybe rewarding, or that you can have an impact on from that side of your career?
But you know what so are you like asking me that question as if I'm a real accountant?
Sure.
I'm
not a real accountant.
I'm a spicy accountant. That's the term that you use because you can't say the term that you actually are. So I'm not a real accountant. Sorry, everybody. If you thought I could do your taxes for you. Yeah. I say don't pay your tax. No, I'm just kidding. For legal reasons, that's a joke. I pay all my taxes. No, I'm not an actual accountant. I'm a spicy. It's basically just another word for OnlyFans chick. That's funny though.
Let's see. I was hoping to get some actual legal advice on how to do my taxes. So
I did learn you something. So you know. No,
well,
I'm not really accountant. Sorry.
I'm going to continue to do my taxes the way I have been and not pay them.
There you go.
There are actually ways that you can set up your taxes where that you ultimately don't pay anything.
I don't know anything about that.
All right, so let's see. Trying to think of the way to word this, because
yeah, go for it. I gotta move my white trash bangs. Need cut. They keep poking me in the eyeballs.
How do you take serious topics and make them humorous and funny? Like for the morning show that I do, we are basically not serious with anything, and it's all just a giant joke as far as we're concerned. But like when I do this show, I try to be humorous, but the more I listen to my own content, the more I realize I swing and miss, and I end up being way too serious more often than not. Maybe I don't do well in a solo format or like one-on-one interviews, whereas in more of a group, it's a little more loosey-goosey and freewheeling. But how do you take like good serious topics and turn them into something that's humorous and relatable for people? Because you have clearly managed to do that, and it's the reason why you get both plenty of love and plenty of hate, is because you do present things in a way that people can engage with it.
Well, thank you. So I think, first of all, don't be so hard on yourself. It's a lot easier to be funny in a group setting because you have more going on and more to like bounce off of. So yeah, that's just typical with anybody. But the whole making serious things funny, basically the easiest way I've found to do it is just to kind of riff off of the opposing side like you believe it, but like pointing out the stupidity in it while you do it. So it's so easy now with progressives, lefties, whatever you want to call them. Their sides have gotten, it's so ridiculous now. It's almost not like they're satire in and of themselves. Nothing makes sense. They're super hypocritical. Like they'll be one day they're like, we need to disarm all American citizens, and the next day they're like, we need to arm the citizens of Ukraine. And I'm like, do you guys like listen to what you're saying?
They don't.
It's insane. They just wake up every day, like everything data dumps from their head from the day before. And they're just like, go ahead, put it in me. What do I think today? And they just take it with absolutely not like zero thought. Kind of makes me like think NPC theory is real because it's absolutely insane. So you don't have to try really hard if you're going to attack lefties, honestly. Going after the right is a little tougher though, because their stuff, while you can disagree with it, usually has some like logical consistency to it. You know what I mean? Like it's usually based off of their moral values. So it's kind of difficult to point out the hilarity on the right because there's not a whole lot of hilarity there anymore. But the left is super easy. You just point out exactly what they say and how it contradicts, and funny.
Maybe that's why I feel like I fail with the humor thing, is because a lot of the times what I am going after is stuff that is most of the people that I know personally that would listen to this show tend to be coming at it from the right. So I tend to attack the police and teachers unions and public education a lot. And they are very, and most people on the right are very entrenched in, back the blue and teachers are good. I get it. My mom was a teacher. My niece is a sheriff's deputy. I have family that is in law enforcement and education. Lots of friends in both. I get it, but like, just because you support them and you know people personally who do it doesn't mean that everything they do is right, and it especially doesn't mean that, like, in the little bitty tiny small, like you talked about coming from a class or a school that had 700. Like, I graduated with the biggest class in our school, and it was 50 of us who graduated together. Like, super small school. In our little community, the teachers that we have and the police that we have, they're a lot different than the police and the teachers in general that you see across the rest of the United States. And that's what, like, that's the things that I'm going after. But then I get very personally attacked on, well, what about your mother? She taught preschool for 20 years. Are you just saying that everything she did was wrong? Like, no, I'm not talking about individuals.
I am. No, you just lean into it. You just say, yeah, fuck you, mom. Like, so yeah, that happens. It's actually funny. I get attacked a lot by the left in like the kind of mob scenario thing that they do, where they'll just all kind of the worst one I ever got was I really pissed off for some reason a group of lefties from the UK, and man, did they come at me. they were not happy. But the worst one I got from the right was I made a video like making fun of police, basically, and just kind of pointing out how you would never let another person do this to you. And so I did this like fake scenario where someone's telling you to like get in a cage, and then you don't want to listen to them, and then they point a gun at you or whatever, and then at the end it's like, oh, I'm a police officer, and they're like, oh, why didn't you just say that? Like, I'll do whatever you want. You want to search my butthole? Like that. So I made that video, and then I got the mob thing. The mob thing happened to me, but from the right. And I was like, whoa, you guys usually don't like team up like this. Like, this is well organized. And ultimately I had to pull the video down because they were reporting what happens when you get like the mob thing is they'll come in and they'll just start reporting all your videos. And then you're like, and then you run the risk of like your account being banned completely and stuff like that, because TikTok's just commie talk and it's absolutely ridiculous. And they'll just take you down for no reason. So I was like, so I had to just delete the video, but I was like, I guess I can't like do that on here. I'm gonna have to make a backup account just to talk about like police brutality. But that was the only time I've ever seen the right come together in an organized fashion and attack me. It was about making fun of police officers. And I was like, wow, you guys are crazy. So the whole, what do you call it when somebody's like in a bad relationship, and then they like end up liking their abuser? What's that called? Stockholm syndrome. Yeah. So the left clearly has Stockholm syndrome, but the right has Stockholm syndrome on that big time, on like the police thing. And it's very weird, but they haven't let go of that fully. But there are more people from the right that are like opening their minds to it and stuff like that. I think COVID had a lot to do with it, when they were like, whoa, like, you guys are literally coming after our freedom. Like, that's not cool. When you have like people being pulled out of restaurants in New York City, like families with children, because they don't have their documents for their COVID vaccine. I think that like woke a lot of people up. Like, that's a little much. They have like 20 police officers there. It's like, well, you can't handle this 5-year-old without his papers.
Well, and also the George Floyd riots of the summer of 2020, where you saw the police just literally stand down and watch buildings get burned to the ground and people get beat up and not do anything about it. I think that started to wake some of them up to the fact that the police have no obligation to actually protect you or take care of you in any way.
Hasn't been like that for a long time.
Right.
They don't protect and serve anymore.
Right.
It's just the arm of the state. It's all it is. And They just like to make revenue.
Well, if you ever feel like waking up a different type of right-wing mob, go after public education systems. That'll get them turning.
That'll do it too.
Yeah.
So you know what's interesting about that is I don't know. So like is that recent? Because there's a lot of people on the right who are super pissed at the public education system for like the indoctrination and the whole controversy with like transgender and stuff like that. And they're super supportive of like homeschooling and stuff right now, I've noticed.
So that has kind of come about, especially as Libs of TikTok has become a much more prominent thing, and you've gotten to see on full display some of these like psychotically woke teachers and some of the stuff that they push and promote. And also, as you've seen the CRT stuff become more prevalent, and then with the teachers unions pushing to mask kids and stay shut down when everything pointed to the fact that there was no reason to do that. Yes, that has waned a bit. If you did that in 2020 or before, you would definitely get mobbed for it. It may have loosened a little bit over the last year, though.
Yeah, we have this thing where like teachers are martyrs. It's so weird to me. I don't understand why. Like, it's the hardest job ever, and it's like you get every weekend off. You only work till like 3 p.m. You have all summer off. You basically can't get fired. You're doing nothing but. Do you remember how easy school was? You're doing nothing but school every day. You're doing child stuff it's not that difficult. I'm not saying it's like easy or whatever dealing with some of these kids, I'm sure, but it's not the fucking hardest job in the world. It is far from the hardest job in the world. It's basically, I mean, those who can't do teach. That's a real thing. Like, it's pretty easy. It's pretty chill. It's not that intense. You're not doing like hard manual labor. You're not like, let's be honest, are they really like intellectually being burdened teaching 5th grade math the same thing every year? I don't think so. I think people need to chill with the whole teachers are martyrs thing. They're fine. They're like, people just don't want to lose their babysitting. So they're like, oh, the teachers are great.
Let the hate mail flow here. No, I don't disagree. Like I said, my mom was a preschool teacher for 25 years. And yes, I know that there's more than just that to it, but at the same time, there's not a whole lot more than that. And
it's an important job. It's super important because you're literally raising tiny humans. So it's incredibly important. It's just not the most difficult job. It's not like people are like, teachers need to be all paid 6 figures and they don't get paid enough. And like, they work so hard. And it's like, they get a lot of time off and it's pretty chill. Like they don't, bring it down a notch. It's not that intense. It's very important work, but it's not like,
there are also a lot of things in the education industry that, because at the end of the day, it is an industry that teachers bear the burden of a lot of things that they shouldn't, and they do so almost voluntarily and willingly. It's like for my mom, she would do a whole lot of extra stuff, and like, that's not your job. I don't understand why you work for a teachers union and you work for the state and you do all this stuff that's clearly not your responsibility. Like, hold your employers accountable for in my position as a manager, if I'm not doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing, all of my employees are going to rise up against me. Like, why does the teachers union allow the state to be so negligent and treat y'all like shit? Like, isn't that the whole point of having a fucking union?
Well, yeah, I think the teachers do that because it is such a nice job. Like, they don't want to admit it. They want to be looked at as like heroes and martyrs and stuff like that. They're like, look at all I'm sacrificing. It's like, if it's really that hard, to go get a different job. Why are you guys all staying in it for a million years? Like, we all had those teachers who have been teaching since they were like in their 20s and now they're like 80. And it's like, clearly it's an okay job. You guys are really sticking with it. You have a college degree. You can go do something else if you want, but no, you're going to continue to teach. So it's like, obviously you enjoy the job to a certain extent. There's certain perks that you don't want to live without. So you're willing to do all this extra stuff. And that's on them.
I do think it's something that's been a little bit white pilling as far as that goes, because you talked about the push more for homeschooling from the right. You've also seen, I don't know if it's a significant number, but there have been a number of teachers who have, over the last year and a half or so, started to leave the educational profession and go either teach privately or just leave the field entirely and go do something else because it has gotten to a point that they're unwilling to continue to go along with the insanity that is the industry of public education as run by the state.
Which is great. That's how you fix things.
Right.
That's, free market working itself out right there. If you don't like it, leave.
Well, did you have anything else you might want to talk about or touch on? We have run the gamut of the topics that I kind of wanted to cover, and I really appreciate it. This was it was a lot of fun. It was a little bit different than what I might have been expecting. I don't know.
What were you expecting?
I don't know.
Do you want just like joke after joke from me? Did I not deliver? You were like, oh, she's just going to come here and make me laugh my ass off. And I'm like, no, I'm actually going to talk about the things.
No, I appreciate that. Because some people do get the perception from social media. Like social media is it's kind of a magnifying glass on a very specific thing. And people may not get a full gamut of like either how funny somebody is or how intelligent somebody is or just how nuanced somebody's opinion is on something, because you know, on social media, especially something like TikTok, you see, a minute of what is actually a huge, thing that's in your head. So this was really fun to talk in depth about nuts and bolts type stuff with your views and opinions on these topics that are very prevalent in our society, and also the fact that you can make it into a minute of something funny like the intro I ran at the beginning.
Yeah, thanks. Well, that's why I'm actually starting up my own podcast. Should be launching next month. I'm really excited, but I want to start doing like the longer form stuff for sure, because it is hard to fit. Most of my stuff is like 15 seconds or less, so it's like just one little punchy joke. And so I definitely want to sit down and like talk about these issues, really kind of describe, like you said, the nuance, because TikTok is not a place for nuance at all. And that's not what gets interaction either. So, but yeah, so I'm excited, kind of bring the libertarian message a little further out there.
Yeah, I mean, anyway. Twitter's the same way. It's not honestly, Facebook isn't either. The social media as a whole is not the place for nuance. That's the whole reason I started doing this show, was because I would write like these long articles explaining my opinions on something, and nobody would look at it. Nobody reads. So, but then I figured out if I started doing like 5 or 10 minute videos and explaining that same thing that I just wrote a fucking book about, people would actually watch those and listen to those and pay attention. So,
reading is hard. Okay. We're not all that good at it.
That's our education system has failed us.
Exactly. Here's another thing about that. Is like, look how dumb we all are. We go to school for you go to school for like 1 million hours a week, and then you come out and you can't even do like the 5th grade math. You can't even do it. And you're like, I don't even know I don't remember anything from school. And teachers act like their job is so hard. And it's like, you're not even doing your job. Like, there's so many Americans who can't even read.
There are plenty of studies that show most high school graduates are reading on like a 2nd or 3rd grade level and can't.
Yes, I was like, what were you doing in school that whole time? Do you know the amount of skills you could learn if you were just like learning skills for what you go to school 30, 40 hours a week? When you're a kid, you go Monday through Friday for like how many hours?
All right, I don't remember. 6-7 hours a day, something like that. I mean,
yeah. If you were just learning skills during that time, do you know how much you could absorb? The things that people could be doing, it would be insane. And what do you learn? Like memorizing the order of the presidents? What does that do? Absolutely nothing. And I don't remember it anyway because I just wrote it on my hand the whole time. Sorry, Mrs. Hesslink. I cheated.
Well, looks like you would fail the uni's test here. Can you name all the states without a map?
No, the ones in the middle. Who gives a fuck about those ones?
The flyover states.
Nobody knows them. Sorry.
And we don't need to. Like, does it matter? Unless
nobody cares about you, Idaho. I live in Michigan now, so I can't really talk.
I would say that's sort of one of those flyover states.
Yeah, it's horrible. Everybody here's like super obsessed with it too. They're like, I live here.
They do the mitten thing. It's so dumb. Anyways, that's my life now.
That is perfect. That is perfect. All right, you got anything else?
That's it.
So Uni's from Iowa. He's in one of those flyover states that nobody actually knows where it is. Even if you did have a map, nobody can point to which one it is. It's somewhere near Nebraska that you also can't identify.
Oh, I forget that Nebraska even exists.
If it weren't for the College World Series every year in Omaha, nobody would know it exists.
Yeah, like North Dakota, how they were so great during COVID, but it's like nobody cares, and everybody just talks about Florida. Yeah. It's like North Dakota's over, like, no, we did it first and we did it better, and people are like, yeah, but you're North Dakota.
Yeah, like 4,000 people live there. Nobody cares.
Yeah, everybody's packing up and moving to Florida, and North Dakota's like, well, but we didn't lock down literally at all, and it's like, yeah, but then I gotta live in North Dakota.
Beautiful scenery, but also snow. I guess you're from Michigan, so so snow might not bother you as much as a southerner like me.
Yeah.
Oh, see, next time we're gonna talk about the Free State Project, because that's a
the bigger one, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to do this again because there are plenty more topics on this, and also we'll get updates on your podcast as you get started off with that, and help you get.
Yes, it's going to be called Tax This with Elizabeth Duffy. And I'll definitely have you on. If you guys want to kind of keep updated, you can follow me on TikTok at the Elizabeth Duffy. You can follow me on Instagram at the Elizabeth Duffy. FYI, the Instagram pics are a little saucy, so don't follow if you're easily offended by boobs. And yeah, that's about it.
I don't think any of my audience is going to be very easily offended, but
you never know.
You never know. And Magoo is he's kind of a loose cannon sometimes. Well, thank you very much. This has been a lot of fun. This has been very engaging. I really appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we'll see a whole lot more of you with the with Tax This and everything else that you got going on.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.